millions of Americans are hitting the skies during this holiday weekend, and that means airports are crowded, flights might be delayed, and in fact, the whole process just might get you a little stirred up. With that being said, listen, there's ways to travel smarter, and there are etiquette tools that I should say that you might need if you're that passenger that you might not want to be that passenger. But here's the thing. There's a best-selling travel author who is joining us now live, also a frequent flyer. His name is Brandon Blewett, and he joins us now with some pretty interesting information. Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on this interview. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I actually just got off a plane yesterday, and I will be on one tomorrow morning. So glad we could fit this in the break.
I am so happy too, because after seeing not just your book, which I love the title, and I want to get into that in a sec, but just to see how much you've traveled, talk to us about how you became a frequent flyer.
It's all for work, right? I started off in my career in consulting, and it was back in the day where every Monday morning you got on a plane, you went to a client site, and every Thursday you flew home. I happen to get into mergers and acquisitions, so now in my role, I am constantly out meeting with business owners that are looking to sell, meeting with lenders, investors. So the airport is my home. I joke that I pay property taxes in Texas, but I probably should have some kind of jurisdiction up in the air somewhere.
Yeah, you might not want to throw that joke out there. It might become reality one of these days.
That's true.
I mean, you never know. So, Brandon, how many miles have you logged or think you've logged?
I know I've flown at least 1.2 million with Delta, which I know is a big airline in Detroit. I lived in Atlanta for many years. It was great to fly with them. I'm approaching about 500K with American since I've moved back to Dallas, and then I'd have to guess between the rest of the carriers when you get caught in a pinch if you're not in a hub city, probably another 100K. So coming on 2 million miles or a little bit north of that.
Unbelievable. That's a lot of flying time. But I do want to get to your experiences. I feel like you've seen it all. So I want to talk. I want to talk about some of the craziest things you've seen and the etiquette recommendations you have for anyone flying. So what's the craziest thing?
The craziest thing I have seen was a person try to bring on or try to check pounds and pounds of elk meat and had dry ice in the in the containers. And there was this whole fiasco at the gate where nobody had seen this happen before, so we didn't know, hey, how are we actually going to react? That was probably the most interesting thing I've seen. But in the book, it's when I talk about how to avoid strangers, I'm talking about stranger habits that people enact, and they do so on a regular basis in the airport. And I think the most wild thing that I have seen is the people that think that the plane is a conference room, and that everybody, including the folks in row 34, 35, need to hear every detail of your call, like they're an investor learning, dialing in to learn about earnings.
You know what? I love that because I've heard some pretty interesting calls. I shouldn't even say calls. They were more like fights. And I've said, put the speaker down. We don't want to hear this right now. So are there some horrible habits that people tend to do, especially on planes?
There are, and that's what I crafted were the six. And now I chose these six. There are many more. Anyone who's flown knows that. But there were also some professional development lessons that we could draw from these. But I think two that are the most obnoxious to your fellow travelers. One I call the backpack wrecking crew, and that's the person that walks down the aisle and their bag is maybe loosely hanging on their shoulder or it's affixed to their back, and they turn around to talk to somebody behind them. Well, what happens is anyone in an aisle seat now has a black eye or a concussion. And it's easy to just take your bag off, hold it in front of you. That way you're able to see you have spatial awareness. You can see where the bag is going. And then one I'm sure you can relate to. As soon as the seatbelt sign goes off, I totally understand wanting to stretch your legs. But if you're in row 16, 17, there's really no need to put your bag in the aisle. There are definitely going to be people in rows 11 and 12 that have a bag behind you because they had a delayed connection and they were just happy to make the flight. Just stand up and let the people in front of you exit maybe a row or two before you start, maneuvering yourself into the aisle to exit.
You know what I wish? I wish that flight attendants would actually come on and say, for anyone that needs to hop on another flight, stand up, make yourself, put yourself in the aisle.
Yeah.
Anyone else, Stay in your seats because it is so hard, especially when I know you mentioned Atlanta being a hub. When I've been to certain airports, not always do flight attendants let the people that need to get on the next flight go through. And it's tough for a lot of us.
It is. And I think that one thing that I try to pay attention to is if the person sitting next to me is stressed, they're huffing and puffing, I'll just ask, "Hey, do you need to get out before me? Do you have a connection to make?" And if they do, then be polite and I do the same thing, right? It's just lightly nudge, politely ask if you can move in front, explain the situation. Generally, I feel like when people know that, hey, you're in a hurry, you're not just trying to be rude and get off the plane, they will acquiesce and be polite.
That's very smart. Sometimes I try to avoid communicating with people, but you know what? Maybe if it's closer to the end of the flight, why not? Ask them if they want to go through. Uh, so bad. Brandon, I do want to ask as well, other habits sometimes people might have that just are awful. No shoes, no socks, putting their feet against someone else's seat.
Oh,
Let's talk about the etiquette behind what are we not supposed to do so that those who do those things who are watching right now don't do them again.
let's talk about two things. One, the feet. If you are barefoot, you should, or if you're wearing flip-flops or sandals and you don't have socks, you should absolutely never take your shoes off while you're on the plane. I saw someone one time walk into a lavatory with their shoes off. I
Oof.
almost needed
Oh,
that baggie in the seat in front of me when I saw what was happening. And if you do have socks, I think the only appropriate time to take your shoes off is if you're on an overnight flight and you stow your feet under the seat in front of you where nobody else can see them, right? I think that's the only
mm.
appropriate way to not have your shoes on an airplane. I think that the second thing, I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't enjoy it when somebody views my seat back as a rock climbing wall and they grab it to get out. There's a reason that the armrests are metal and they're sturdy. It's so that you can push yourself out of the seat. Really avoid kind of yanking on the person in front of you, your seat neighbor in front of you. Avoid yanking on that seat back.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, food wise, I don't mind if you're eating and munching, but when you're like rolling in with like a whole bag of Taco Bell and bean burritos, I don't know if I want to be sitting next to you.
Or elk meat.
Or elk meat.
No, no, I agree. And there's sometimes when I look at the restaurant options in the airport and I want to call the city authority and say, why did you think a Ben's Chili was an appropriate venue to be across from a gate that's, putting people on an aircraft? I look at it this way. I think that if you would not enjoy smelling that food for more than say, 30 seconds, don't bring it on the plane. There's a lot of options that are cold that you can eat, very quietly and that are not going to have a lot of smell. Like do that on the plane. It's going to make everybody around you much happier. And generally, even if something smells good before you've eaten it, you kind of get tired of the way it smells after. Like maybe remember that before you make that food selection.
Brandon, what's your recommendation for someone who might be sitting next to you and you don't know them? All of a sudden, they're like leaning and then they knock themselves out on your shoulder.
I think that sometimes you can just gently tap, wake them up. And if they're not waking up and it's really bothering you, which that would bother me, there's a reason there's a call button for the flight attendants.
Yeah.
They can generally come by and try to wake that person up.
Yeah, have someone else get involved at that point. Brandon, this is such an enjoyable conversation. I'm sure you've seen even more than what we're talking about here. But give us your number one tip for surviving holiday travel without losing your mind, whether it's at the airport, on a plane, wherever it is.
I think there's two things that you need to do. The first is plan for the worst as it relates to logistics. So, map out the traffic patterns, look at the airport website for TSA wait times, add buffers to all of those things. So that way you're not stressed and panicked that you're not going to make it to your gate. The other thing that I would say is make sure you get sleep the night before. Make sure you eat before you get to the airport. I find that if I'm well rested, I'm not hungry, I'm generally in a better mood. And then one thing I try to do to avoid spiraling when there's delays is I'm really busy. I'm sure you are. There's a lot of content on whether it's Netflix, HBO, Hulu, you name it that I haven't had time to catch up on. I will download those items to my iPad or to my laptop. That way, if there is a delay, I have something to look forward to. So I'm not the person chewing out the gate agent who, by the way, had nothing to do with the delay. So always be nice and courteous to the gate agents and the crew.
Yeah, very true. I was on a flight one time that was delayed 3 times. The gate agent ended up turning off the monitor and told people to stop coming up to her. And at some point, I couldn't. I kind of felt bad. I said, I don't blame her. It's tough. You have, 300 passengers ready to attack you.
Right. 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 I have never seen a situation where someone's approached a gate agent, a crew member, and blamed it on them.
Yeah.
And not that the gate agent or crew, fought back, but they weren't as willing to help, right? There's been many times where I'm, stuck, there's a delay, maybe there's another flight that I need to get on, and I'll make a joke, walk up to a gate agent, say, "Hey, I bet you're having a really good day, right? Like, must be having fun." And that demeanor, you'd be surprised how much they're willing to do to try to help you get your way, because you're the person that was treating them with kindness and frankly just like a human being.
Yeah, for sure. Brandon, before we go, tell us more about your book and what we can find if we pick it up.
Absolutely. So, How to Avoid Strangers on Airplanes. It's available on Amazon, Kobo, Barnes and Noble. It's really just a collection of travel stories. I've seen a lot. It's the 6 habits of highly annoying travelers, and then some of the professional development lessons that I drew. I like to say that the most valuable degree I got, it was not law school or my MBA. It was the business degree I got from air travel and watching people in airports.
It's always about the experience, and I always tell people this.
It is. It is.
It really is. Brandon, and also you have a website that people can go to find more?
Absolutely. It's brandonbluid.com. I'm also on X, Brandon in the Air, same moniker for Instagram. And it's Brandon_N_the_air on YouTube, which is a lot of underscoring.
Yeah, apparently. Also, Brandon, I gotta say, I enjoy talking travel all the time and, money saving tips and all that, but forget all that. These things, these habits and the crazy things that happen on planes, always a fun conversation. I appreciate your time. This was a very fun segment for me. So thank you. And hopefully we can have you back for more.
Absolutely. I'll have to do it live sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you know what? Maybe next time you're on a flight, just Zoom with us.
Let's do it.
Let's do that. There we go. Brandon Bluids, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.